What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. I would like to take a look at a fight that happened on the night of January 1st, 1935. The fight took place in Mexico City, Mexico, and was for the California and Mexican State Featherweight Championship. The champion was Baby Arizmendi. He would pick up that title in 1932, and he would make a defense against Henry Armstrong, defeating him in 12 rounds. And he would remain recognized as the California and Mexican featherweight champion. Now, Arizmendi walked into the ring as a 21-year-old. He stood 5'4.5" weighed 128 pounds. He had a 68.5-inch reach and walked into the ring that night with a record of 31 wins, 6 losses, 6 draws, and 14 knockouts. As for Henry Armstrong, he was 25 years old. He stood 5'5.5", weighed 128 pounds, had a 67-inch reach, and he walked into the ring that night with a record of 65 wins, 9 losses, 9 draws, and 14 knockouts. Now, who was Baby Arizmendi? His name was Alberto Arizmendi, who was better known as Azteca King or Azteca Warrior. He's to your right. He was born March 17, 1913 in Mexico. He would die December 31st, 1962 in Los Angeles, California. And he would suffer from diabetes. Now here you have a 5'4.5" featherweight. He had a 68.5-inch reach. Had a 13-year span. Fought from 1927 to 1942. He walked into the ring for the first time as a 13-year-old. And he would end his career with a total bout of 140 fights, 92 wins, 26 losses, 17 draws, 20 knockouts, and he'd be stopped 4 times himself. Between October 18, 1932 and February 28, 1933, he'd be in the ring with Archie Bell twice, Speedy Dado, who was a very good Filipino fighter, Freddie Miller, who would become a featherweight champion, and Newsboy Brown. Now, Henry Armstrong, his name was Henry Jackson. He'd be known as Medley Jackson as an amateur. He would try out for the 1932 Los Angeles Olympic Games. And he would be trained for 6 months by Harry Wiley Sr. He would come up short because of his style. And after the Olympic box off, he would head west. And he would pick up the name as Henry Armstrong. He was born December 12, 1909, Columbus, Mississippi. He died October 23, 1988, in Los Angeles, California. He stood 5'5.5". He was a featherweight, welterweight, and lightweight champion. He had a 67-inch reach. By the time his career was over, he had a record of 183 total bouts, 151 wins, 100 knockouts. He was stopped twice himself and had 10 draws. Now, his first professional fight, he was stopped by Almino. And then he would be stopped in 1941 when he was trying to regain the welterweight championship belt from Fritzy Zivit. But he'd be in the ring with fighters such as Bojack in 1943, Ray Robinson that same year in 1943. He would face Fritzy Zivit in 1940, October 4th to be exact. Then he would have a rematch in 1941 with Fritzy Zivit. But then he would defeat Fritzy Zivit. Be in the ring with Seferino Garcia, defeat him in 1938 when he was defending his welterweight championship strap. But he would rob by Seferino Garcia in 1940. Before the New York was actually the National Boxing Association title because the New York SAC wasn't on the line because Henry Armstrong had to go to California. It was set up that way so that Henry Armstrong wouldn't be a threat to the New York SAC title. And George Blake, who was the referee, took 5 rounds away from Henry Armstrong. California would recognize a championship fight as a 10-round fight. It was perfectly scripted and designed to call this fight a draw, so that Henry Armstrong wouldn't win, he wouldn't lose. But most importantly, he would not become the middleweight champion of the world. Now, during the course of Henry Armstrong's career, He'd be in the ring with Fizzy Zivik, Severino Garcia, Lou Jenkins, Tibby Larkin, Benny Bass, Sammy Engat. I mean, he faced Bo Jack and Ray Robinson, Lou Ambers. Some of the greatest fighters of his day. But he would have to take on Baby Arizmendi 6 times. He would win 3, and Arizmendi would win 3. Now, Arizmendi would win the Mexican title from Kid Pancho. He would defeat him on points November 14th, 1931. And he would win the California State Championship after defeating former gold medal champion in the flyweight division. His name was Fidel La Barba. Defeating him January 1st, 1932. He would defeat Newsboy Brown for that shot in Los Angeles. August 30th, 1934. He was outpointed by Freddie Miller. He won a New York SAC featherweight championship title, August 30th, 1934, outpointing Bronx Spider, Mike Belois. May 14th, 1933. He would KO in 3 rounds, Mickey Cohen. It would make him recognizable as a figure. November 4th, 1934, he would outpoint Armstrong. January 1st, 1935, he'd outpoint Henry Armstrong once again. And he would win the California and Mexican State Championship belt. Now, when he won that title, he would re-win that title because Henry Armstrong took the title from him a year earlier. August 4th, 1936, he lost the Mexican California State Championship title to Henry Armstrong. October 4th, 1937, he outpointed Chalky Wright. March 15th, 1938, he'd be outpointed by Henry Armstrong. January 10th, 1939, he would lose the welterweight championship shot against Homicide Hank. And that would be the final time these two would meet. Let's digest what we just understood. These two men would meet each other 6 times. Henry Armstrong would defeat him 3 times. Baby Arizmendi would defeat him 3 times. And they fought each other from featherweight to welterweight. And each time they fought was for a title. That is remarkable. Jackie Wilson was defeated in 8 rounds. Technical knockout, Wrigley Field, 1941. It was at the Golden State. It was for the welterweight championship. Now, Lou Ambers, 6 rounds, New York Madison Square Garden. Ambers would take on Henry Armstrong 2 separate occasions. He would lose to his more veteran fighter than Henry Armstrong. And he would lose his lightweight championship belt that he would pick up from Tony Cantonelli to Henry Armstrong, 1938. At that point in time, Henry Armstrong had the featherweight championship crown, which he lifted from Petey Cerrone in 1937 of October. The fight took place in New York's Madison Square Garden. And Henry Armstrong would be the first Black American featherweight champion. And he'd be the 3rd black fighter to win a title in New York's Madison Square Garden. 1926, Tiger Flowers would defeat Harry Greb and become the first black middleweight champion in New York's Madison Square Garden. 1935, John Henry Lewis would defeat Bob Olin, and he would become the first black American light heavyweight champion. And he'd be the 2nd black fighter to win a title in New York's Madison Square Garden. Well, as for Henry Armstrong, as I stated, he would be the first black American featherweight champion. He'd be the 3rd black fighter to win that crown in Madison Square Garden. But he would lose his title Back to Lou Ambers. I'm referring to the lightweight championship. And Henry Armstrong, who I have number 4 as the greatest fighter of all times, would mix it up with baby Arizmendi on 6 separate occasions. Now here you have Henry Armstrong to your right and Barney Ross to your left. He would defeat Barney Ross in 1938 at the Madison Square Garden Bowl. And what was amazing about that arena, no champion has ever defended his title there. That's the way these two men looked in 1938. Two very special fighters. They both had the same manager, Eddie Mead. Barney Ross had a great career, but so did Henry Armstrong. And these two men would meet in 1938 and exchange the title, the World Welterweight Championship. And Henry Armstrong would meet up with Petey Cerrone. That's Petey Cerrone to your left. He would meet up with him New York's Madison Square Garden in 1937. And by the way, Henry Armstrong had 27 fights that year. And in that year, he would defeat Benny Bass, who was a former champion. Matter of fact, Kid Chocolate would defeat Benny Bass for the junior lightweight championship belt. Henry Armstrong would take on Petey Cerrone. Petey Cerrone would retire after he would meet Sammy Angot. And he was an outstanding fighter himself. I wanted you to see Lou Ambers. Lou Ambers is to your left. And he would take the title away from Tony Canzoneri, but he would lose it to Lou Jenkins. And what was amazing about the Lou Jenkins fight, Lou Ambers would be stopped in 3 rounds. That has never happened to him before. He was very durable. He won 15 rounds with Henry Armstrong twice. Total of 30 rounds. So that was amazing that night. But you're looking at Lou Ambers, a phenomenal lightweight champion. I just wanted to show you Tony Canzoneri, who was to your left, and Freddie Miller, who's to your right. These are 2 Hall of Fame champions, great fighters. Now you're looking at baby Arizmendi and Henry Armstrong. This is for Henry Armstrong's welterweight championship. Now Henry Armstrong is to your right and baby Arizmendi is to your left. Look at Henry Armstrong uses his elbows and his shoulders to steer baby Arizmendi in the direction that he wants him to go. Very short left hooks and right hooks to the head. He stays directly in front of his man. But his head is bobbing and weaving, and if you see, his left arm goes to work. He shoves him off with the left shoulder and the left elbow and the left forearm. Keeps him at bay. Henry Armstrong comes right out with the jab. And he stays right on his man, ducking and bobbing and weaving his head. Harry Wiley Sr. had taught him how to steer his man with his head in the direction that he wants him to go. He watches his opponent's feet. He constantly applies pressure. You're not sure whether he's going to jab or he's going to force you out with the left elbow. Right now, Henry Armstrong is keeping the head on the chest of baby Arizmendi. Baby Arizmendi cannot breathe. He doesn't have enough punching space. He remains on his back foot. Henry Armstrong was an incredible fighter, and I just wanted to show you this fight that took place between baby Arizmendi and Henry Armstrong. I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff Series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Thanks for watching.